Hi everyone, and welcome to this training video for the card game of Production. Production is a card game created for the USITT Virtually Anywhere conference, and is a game where 2 to 4 players work together to try to create a number of theatrical productions using various projects by the given time limit. What I'm going to show you in this video is the different types of cards that are available, what they do, and then I will show you a sample round so you can understand how to play the game. The first type of card that you want to pay attention to is what's called the show card. There are 2 different shows, Spectre of the Opera House and the French Revolution. These are your goal cards. You want to build these shows to complete the game. If you're playing a 2-player game, you only have to build one of them, your choice. If you're playing a 3 or 4-player game, however, you're going to try to build both of them. Each show has different requirements that it needs to build. 2 requirements from the scenic area, 2 requirements from the costumes area, and 2 requirements from the electrics area, and then 2 showcases. We'll talk about all of these individually. First thing you'll notice is each one has some similar requirements. Both shows need 3 Hollywood flats, 3 clothing, and 3 front of house pipes. But they differ in some of the other projects. Spectre of the Opera House, for example, needs 2 platforms, 2 shoes and boots, and 2 specials. Whereas the French Revolution needs 2 wagons, 2 costume crafts, and 2 projections. Both of them need 2 showcases. There are 3 showcase cards for each show. These showcase cards are very special projects, unique projects like the Mask of the Spectre or the Giant Blockade. So you'll have a choice of which ones you want to work on. And once you start working on a showcase project, that helps you decide which show you're going to try to accomplish first. Next, you have the game calendar. This helps you track where you are in the game. The game is played in 6 rounds. Each round, players will take actions to complete projects, and then we will draw good events or bad events at the end of each round. So as you can see, at the end of week 1, or at the beginning rather, I'm sorry, we will draw a sponsor boost. This is a good event. When we start week 2, however, we'll draw a bad event. Week 3 will be another sponsor event. Week 4 will be another bad event, so on and so forth. Week 5 is the end point if you're playing a 4-player game. In that case, you would draw a bad event and a good sponsor event. If you're playing a 2 or 3-player game, however, the game ends at week 6. So you would draw 1 event, and everyone gets +1 action that turn. This is to simulate a standard build calendar, with week 5 being the tech week if you are playing a 4-player game, or week 6 being the tech week if you're playing a 2 or 3-player game. That's the crunch time. So everyone playing the game will play as one of 4 different employees in this theater company. Either an electrics specialty, a scenic specialty, a costume specialty, or a generalist. Each player has 4 actions that they can complete each turn or round. These actions are what allow them to complete projects. And we'll look at how that kind of works in a little bit here and what the other abilities they can do are. Now the generalist has some different abilities, so we'll look at those in a second. But the costumes, electrics, and scenic all have 4 actions that they can spend each turn. Once those actions are done, then their turn is done. Now each of these specialty areas have their own special ability. When they work on a project that is from their area, 1 action equals 2 results on a card that they're working on. For example, if a scenic person is working on a Hollywood flat, which normally requires 2 actions to complete, they can complete it for 1. Likewise, electrics could complete a front of house for 1, and costumes could complete a clothing for 1. Now the generalist does not have a specialty area. So to make up for that, they have 5 actions that they can complete each turn. So how you choose your employees and who you want to be can help determine the outcome in the game. If you're playing a 4-player game, all 4 areas will be represented. Now each player has the other same abilities that they can all do. So you can all work on projects. That's how you spend some of your actions. But you also have some other things that you can do if you don't like the projects that are on the board and you want to try to get the projects you need. One of those is you can use 1 action to discard a current project and draw a new one. Your second ability would be to spend 1 action and replace a current project with one from the discard pile. So if you know you have a project in the discard pile that you want, you could replace one on the board with a new one. Sometimes, none of the projects on the board are what you want to work on. In that case, you have a special ability where you can spend 2 actions and discard all 3 projects and draw 3 more. So that is how a turn will go. One player starts working on projects, either spending actions to complete them, discarding, drawing new ones, and then it moves on to the next player. These are the project cards. So these are the ones that we need to complete the shows. Notice there's 3 different types for each area: Hollywood flats, platforms, wagons, clothing, costume crafts, shoes and boots, front of house pipes, projections, and specials. They're color coded, but they also have symbols for each area, so you can easily identify what they belong to. They also have a number of actions symbol. So you can see that all of these cards require 2 actions to complete. So again, if you are not in the specialty area, it would take you 2 actions to complete one of these projects. However, if you're working on a project from your area, it would only take you 1. All of these cards are in the main project deck, and this is what we're drawing every turn. There's 2 other types of cards in the project deck that we want to pay attention to. One of them is the showcase token. So remember that we have showcase projects that we have to complete for our shows. The showcase cards themselves aren't in the deck. Instead, we have these generic tokens. So when you draw one of these, you remove it from the game, and you pick a showcase project that you want to work on. I'll show you the showcase projects themselves in a little bit. There's one other type of card in there that's not a project, and it's called an injury. If you draw an injury on your turn, you lose all of your remaining actions for the rest of that turn, unless another player can pay 2 actions to prevent that. So it's your choice if you think it's worth it to get your actions back or not. So all of these cards are shuffled into the main project deck. And I'll show you how to set up the game in a little bit. These are the showcase cards. There's 3 for Spectre of the Opera House and 3 for French Revolution. Each one has a little bit of a different specialty area to it with a secondary requirement. So you can see that Spectre's Mask and Patriotic Flag both require 6 costumes and 2 scenic. Underworld Boat and Giant Blockade both require 6 scenic and 2 electrics. Mirror Wall both require Mirror Wall and Explosive Barrels both require 6 electrics and 2 costumes. So these cost a little bit more, but they are important for the game. You have to have 2 for the show that you're working on. So you want to make sure that you have enough actions when you get one of these up. The earlier you get them done, potentially the better you'll be at the end. Now, there's some other types of cards. So we talked about the events that are drawn at the beginning of each round or week. These will be turned into a pre-constructed deck that I'll show you how to do in a little bit here. But I'll show you what the cards are. On the left, you'll see all of the sponsor cards. And on the right, you'll see all of the event cards. The sponsors all are good abilities, and they're separated by weeks. So you see there's 3 that say week 1, 3 that say week 3, and 3 that say week 5. This is how we'll separate them out into the deck. And then the other 6 bad event cards will shuffle up randomly. Some of the event cards have cancellations, so like power outage, for example. It says electrics projects take 1 extra action this turn. If you have an electrics employee, you can cancel that for 2 actions. So depending on who you have on your team can determine how you do and what choices you'll make. All right, let's start setting up a game and play a sample game. So first thing you'll do is you want to get your game calendar out and set it to the side. You can also reference it using the PDF of the checklist that we've created. Then pull out your show cards and set those aside for reference as well. Remembering if you're playing a 2-player game, you're only going to try to build one of these, but you may not know which one for a while. We also have checklists and PDFs that you can reference for these shows as well. Take all your showcase projects, not the tokens, but the projects themselves, and just set them aside in a pile. When you draw a showcase token, you'll pull one of these out of the pile and replace it in the project area. But for now, we can just set them out of the way. Next, we'll pick our players. For this game, the sample game, I'll have one from each specialty area: scenic, costumes, and electrics. So these will be our 3 employees that will be playing for this game. We'll play about 3 rounds just so you get a sense of how it's going to go. Next, we're going to take all of our projects, our showcase tokens, and our injury cards and shuffle them up into a main deck. Put that face down. This is where we'll draw from and put projects on board that we want to work on. The next thing that we have to do, which is a little more complicated, is we have to create our event pile. These are the events that we draw at the end of at the beginning of each week or round. So what you want to do is separate your sponsors into their 3-week piles and also separate your events into their pile of 6. So first, start by shuffling your event pile and then take one event and put it face down. Next, take your week 5 sponsor pile, shuffle that, draw 1 card, and put it face down on top of the event. Then draw another event card and put it face down on top of the last sponsor. Then shuffle your week 3 sponsors, draw 1 card, put it face down, draw 1 last event, put it face down, and then shuffle your week 1 sponsors, draw 1, and put it face down. This creates a pre-constructed event deck so that when we draw one, it'll be set up for the events that you see on the calendar. The rest of them you can put out of the way. We're now ready to begin our game. Okay, so first thing that we'll do is we'll draw 3 project cards. Every time you complete a project, you'll draw a new one from the deck. So it looks like we have a Hollywood flat, a clothing, and a front of house pipes. So right now, every show requires one of those. So we don't necessarily have to work on a specific show yet. We can decide that as we go along. So first thing we'll do is we'll put a counter or a marker on week 1 and draw our sponsor boost for the week. Our sponsor this week is Harlequin Floors. So the ability is search your deck for a platform or wagon project and replace a current project, then shuffle the deck. So at any point during this week, we can use this sponsor boost once. We don't need to do it yet, so we'll wait. We're also going to then put a marker designating that scenic is going to go first. Once they finish all their actions, costumes will go, and then electrics. So let's start with scenic actions. Since we have a Hollywood flat on the board, we're going to work on that first. Remember, our ability is 1 = 2 on scenic projects. So we're going to spend 1 action to complete Hollywood flat. We'll move that out of the way so that we can reference it later. Now that we've completed 1 project, we'll draw a new one. It's another Hollywood flat, so it just makes sense to go ahead and work on that one as well. So we have 2 Hollywood flats completed, and we have 2 actions left. So we draw another card. Hey, it's a 3rd Hollywood flat. That's great. So once we complete that one, we'll have the Hollywood flats completed for either one of the shows. So we'll go ahead and work on that one. We have 1 action left. We draw a card. It's another Hollywood flat. Well, we might as well use our sponsor boost then. So we'll discard the Hollywood flat, use our sponsor boost, and search our deck for a platform card. and bring that into play. Now, because Spectre of the Opera House uses platforms and French Revolution doesn't, that means we're going to be probably working on Spectre of the Opera House first. So we'll go ahead and spend our last action to complete the platform. Now we're going to move to costumes. Now, don't draw a new project until you move to the next player's turn, because if an injury is drawn at the end of the turn, it's going to apply to the next person. So let's go ahead and knock off our 3 Hollywood flats for Spectre of the Opera, since we know that that's probably the one that we're going to be working on first. Now we move to costumes. We draw a new card. It's a showcase token. That's good. So we'll go ahead and pick a showcase project to start working on. Since we're going to work on Spectre of the Opera House first, we'll pick one of those. Let's bring in Spectre's Mask. Since it's costumes person's turn, they can knock out all of those costume parts, and then Electrics can probably start working on some of the others. So we'll spend 3 actions to complete all of the actions on the costume portion of Spectre's Mask. Because remember, 1 equals 2. So 3 actions would complete all 6 of those. Now we have 1 action left for costumes. So since we have a clothing on the board, we'll go ahead and work on that one next. It only takes 1 action, and it's done. So move to Electrics and draw a new card. It's another costume piece. So since there's an Electrics on the board, we'll go ahead and work on that one. We spend 1 action. We have 3 actions left. We've completed a front of house, and we draw a new card. Oh, it's an injury. So since Scenic and Costumes have already gone, they don't have any actions to help us out. So that means that Electrics is going to lose all of their actions for the remainder of the turn. That could put us behind. So we put the injury in the discard pile. Electrics is done, and we move on. So we move to week 2 now. Every turn, we start with a different person to go first. Since Scenic went first last time, we'll let Costumes go first. So we move our marker to week 2, and we draw our event. Ooh, that's not good. Scrambled inventory. Discard all current projects and draw new ones. Now, fortunately, we only have to discard the projects that we're not working on yet. So since we've completed part of Spectre's Mask, that's a project that's already in the works. We don't have to discard that one, but we do have to discard Costume Crafts. So that's going to go in the discard pile, and we draw 2 new projects. Now, we have 2 Electrics projects and some Scenic portion to do, so Costumes is going to probably work on one of those, but it might take them longer. So we'll go ahead and finish the carpentry portion of the Spectre's Mask and complete that. So Costumes only has 2 actions left. Spectre's Mask is completed, and we draw a new card. And it is all Electrics projects. So what we're going to do this time, since we don't need any of those, is we're going to spend our 2 actions to discard all of those projects and draw new ones. That just kind of makes sense, because we know we can bring some of them back if we need to. So now we move on to Electrics, and hopefully we don't draw another injury. We drew another showcase token though, so let's go ahead and bring in another Spectre of the Opera House showcase so we can work on that. Let's bring in Underworld Boat, because next turn Scenic could work on the Scenic portion, and Electrics will go ahead and start working on that one. So first we'll spend 1 action to work on front of house pipes, which gives us 3 actions left. We'll go ahead and do that one more time. Finish another front of house pipes, which allows us to mark off all the front of house pipes for Spectre of the Opera House. Electrics has 2 actions left, so we will put 1 action on the Underworld Boat and finish up the Electrics portion of that, and we still have 1 more action to go. So we'll go ahead and build 1 more front of house pipe, because we know that we're going to need it for French Revolution. So it doesn't hurt to get it done now. So now we move on to Scenic's turn. We draw another card. It's a clothing. So Scenic will go ahead and spend 3 actions to complete Underworld Boat. That gets both of our showcases done. That's great. And we have 2 platforms in play. We know we need 2, so we'll go ahead and work on 1. We have 1 done already, so that completes our platforms for Spectre of the Opera House. So far we're in pretty good shape. Okay, we're going to be moving on to week 3 now. So this time Electrics is going to start. We draw a new wagon, and we also draw a sponsor boost. This sponsor boost is ProTech, which allows us to complete a Scenic project for free. That's awesome. So maybe we'll go ahead and use that to complete the wagon, so the electrics doesn't have to use any actions right now. We don't need a wagon for Spectre of the Opera House, but we do need it for French Revolution, so we'll go ahead and get that done. Then we'll go ahead and spend 2 actions to finish up a second wagon. That gets us both our wagons for French Revolution. Electrics now has 2 actions left. We just drew a specials card, and we know we're going to need those for Spectre of the Opera House. So we'll go ahead and spend 1 action to get one of those done. Now we only have 1 action left, and we have projects that are not electrics. So what we'll do is we will just spend 1 action and put it on shoes and boots. That means if Scenic wants to, it'll only take them 1 action to complete it. So now we move to Scenic's turn, and we'll go ahead and finish that shoes and boots using 1 action. We still have 3 actions left, so we'll go ahead and spend 2 to complete the shoes and boots, which completes that portion for Spectre of the Opera House. Now we only need 2 more clothing. So we have 1 action left, so we're going to discard platform and draw a new card, and it's another specials. So now it's Costume's turn. Costumes is going to go ahead and spend 1 action to work on that clothing. Then they're going to go ahead and spend 1 more action to work on the final clothing. And that completes all of the requirements for Spectre of the Opera House. So at the end of week 3, we have 1 show done. We have a Hollywood flat on the board, so we could probably start that next. But that's where we'll end for now. So as you can see, it's a series of playing actions on projects and strategically picking which ones you want to work on what, and hoping that you don't draw an injury card at the wrong time. I hope you enjoyed the training video. I hope it was informative, and I look forward to playing with you all. Thanks.